Yeah, so my name is Jiang. I'm a high school teacher in Beijing. I'm probably the most well-known high school teacher from China in the world right now. I'm not a fully accredited professor, just to be clear, so the internet doesn't go crazy. But my nickname is Professor Jiang. That's what people online call me because my real name is difficult to pronounce. Most people refer to me as Professor Jiang. So just to clarify, my third prediction is not that Iran would win the war. My third prediction is that the United States would lose the war. That's a very important distinction because it's possible that both Iran and the United States could lose this war. So just to be clear, that was my thinking. Back in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and this changed the geopolitical map. Ukraine and Russia together controlled about a third of the world's grain supply. If Putin had been allowed to consolidate his gains, it would have put enormous pressure on global trade. There is a well-known theory called the Mackinder thesis, or heartland theory, which has long influenced Anglo-American grand strategy. Both Britain and the United States are primarily naval powers that rely on controlling maritime choke points around the world. However, there is one major counter to naval dominance: the creation of a Eurasian heartland, where one power unifies Europe and Asia into a connected land-based trade system. This would bypass Western naval control. Historically, Britain and America have feared this scenario. For centuries, Anglo-American strategy has focused on preventing the unification of Eurasia by destabilizing key regions, especially the Middle East. So if Russia were to consolidate influence in Ukraine, it could potentially cooperate with Iran and China to form a Eurasian trade bloc, often described today as BRICS. Naturally, the United States would seek to disrupt such an alignment. One of the most effective ways to do that is to target Iran, since Iran does not have nuclear weapons and can be pressured through regional proxies and military pressure, including Israel. That was my original framework. But then I asked myself, are there historical examples where empires have launched unprovoked wars for unclear strategic gains? There are many such cases. One famous example is the Peloponnesian War, where Athens invaded Sicily without a clear necessity. And what happens in these cases is important. Empires that overextend themselves militarily tend to lose these wars, not because their opponents are stronger, but because they become overstretched and politically unsustainable. So based on historical patterns, I concluded that the United States would likely lose this war in the sense that it would eventually be forced to withdraw from the Middle East. But right now, I'm getting whiplash from the news cycle. Every hour the narrative changes. Peace tomorrow, escalation the next day. There are constant contradictions coming from the White House. So the real question is, why is this happening? Before the ceasefire, it looked like both the U.S. and Iran were preparing for full-scale war. Trump even said he wanted to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. Then he issued several ultimatums, the last one set for Tuesday. But when the deadline arrived, instead of escalation, there was a sudden shift toward negotiation. Talks were announced, including discussions in Pakistan. J.D. Vance even suggested that Iran would have to accept U.S. conditions or face renewed bombing. So the situation appears extremely inconsistent. Now, I want to offer one possible explanation, though you likely know more about this than I do.